Om Namo Narayanaaya. Om Namo Narayanaaya.
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवं यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
श्रीशैलेशदयापात्रम् धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणम् वन्दे रम्यजामातरम् मुनिम् यो नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणम् प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः. So we continue with the sutras. Sutra number 13. Ivariltayai ivarhal klesham porukkamatade avanukku patniyai iniya vishayamai irukkayade kannadivatta purushakaram இத்தரையிற் காரியம் ஏறிட்டுக் கொண்டு அத்தரையை வசீகரித்தும் இரண்டுத்தனையும் பொறுத்துகைக்கு இவள்தான் கண்ணழிவத்த புருஷகாரம் என்று அருளிச் செய்கிறார். So the literal meaning of this sutra is as follows. இவள் தாயாய் இவர்கள் கிளேசம் பொறுக்க மாட்டாரே அவனுக்கு பத்னியாய். So one very important aspect is to be noted here. For any creation to happen, there has to be two aspects. One is known as Purusha and the other is known as Prakriti. So as far as human beings are concerned or even animals are concerned, the male represents the Purusha Tattva and the female represents the Prakriti Tattva. That is, Prakriti can be roughly translated as matter, but it's not an exact translation. It's a very crude or very gross translation. Because Prakriti, the word Prakriti, which when we etymologically analyze, means Prakarshena karoti Prakriti. That which performs a particular task in the best possible manner is known as Prakriti. That means the law of nature is it multiplies itself. But for it to multiply itself, you see that it requires the intervention of what is known as a Purusha or the Purusha Tattva, that is a sentient principle. So, by the combination of Prakriti and Purusha, the creation or the process of creation happens and the entire universe comes into existence. This is true at the macro level and also the micro level. So even in the micro level, when we talk about plants, there has to be what we call as pollination or something like that. And in animals, there has to be the coming together of a male and female, which is once again Prakriti and Purusha Tattvas. And whether it is human beings or animals or all sentient beings. Of course, insentient beings cannot multiply by themselves. That is totally what we call as Jada. But at the macro level also, for the world to come into existence, we require the coming together of Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is represented by Supreme Goddess Mahalakshmi, and Purusha is none other than Lord Narayana himself. That is why in the Purusha Sukta, Sahasra Shirisha, Purushaha, Sahasraksha, Sahasrapad, etc. Purusha literally means a male person, but it doesn't, once again, it's not an exact translation. Because Purushushete iti Purusha. In Sanskrit, every word gives its meaning based on the etymology. So what is the meaning of the Purushushete, or meaning Purusha? A person who is inherent in all beings is known as Purusha. So he is existing in a very subtle manner. And when Purusha and Prakriti combine together, the creation happens. As I mentioned, at the macro level, it is the combination of Goddess Mahalakshmi, who is his divine Shakti. So, to speak in a very analytical sense, you can approach the relationship between Goddess Mahalakshmi and Lord Narayana in a very analytical manner. You can also analyze the relationship in an emotional manner. From a very analytical manner, from a what they call a scientific viewpoint, it is a sentient tattva, or sentient reality coming together with an insentient reality. In that sense, then we should not ask the question whether Goddess Mahalakshmi is insentient. No. She is the representative of Prakriti Tattva, or primordial nature. So when these two come together, the process of creation occurs. But from a point of view, from our point of view, or from the point of view of a layman, they are the primordial couple who are responsible for creation to happen. Not in the way humans or animals procreate, but at a very, very, very high level, which is beyond our comprehension. So that is why here what Pillalokacharya very beautifully says is, Ival Tayai, Ivarhal Klesham Porukamattare, Avanekku Patniyai, Iniye Vishayamai Rikkayale, Kannadivatta Purushakaram. So she plays a major role, major dual role. She is the mother of all the beings, all the Jivatmas. And Lord Narayana is the father. And the inherent nature of the mother is, she is always very, very, very compassionate towards all her children. Of course, that doesn't mean that Lord Narayana is less compassionate. But when compared to Lord Narayana, who is in the place of a father, Goddess Mahalakshmi is more compassionate. She is compassion personified. That is why Swami Deshikan has beautifully, Vedanta Deshika has composed a beautiful work called Daya Shataka, where he personifies the compassion of the Lord and he makes her a consort of Lord Vishnu. So that compassion itself is glorified to such a level that she is called as Daya Devi or Kripa Devi, and she is given equal status to Goddess Mahalakshmi herself in a way. But these are all to be seen from an emotional point of view, not from an analytical point of view. And so what happens here is Goddess Mahalakshmi is so much compassionate towards all of us, the Jivatmas or individual souls, that she is enamored of her children. A mother is generally enamored of her children. So whatever the child does, so I have seen many mothers around me. So even if their children perform something very bad, they will defend them, which should not be the case actually in ordinary life. Because if the mother encourages a boy or her children to do wrong, or if she doesn't reprimand them, when the children commit a mistake, they will actually continue to commit the same mistake. In fact, my grandmother used to actually narrate a very interesting story. Once a mother was actually carrying her child. It's a small 3-year child. And that child, while they were going to the market, it seems that the spirit of the story is more important. Nitty-gritty may not be important. So when the child was going in the market, there was a person who was selling bananas or plantains. So when the seller was looking the other side, the boy stole 4 bananas. So when he stole it, the mother said, "Good, you have done a good thing. So we have earned 4 bananas without paying anything." So the boy was given to understand that stealing is a very good activity. And then he became a big thief. And once he even ventured to steal the royal treasury itself. And he was caught red-handed. Since he was caught red-handed stealing the royal treasury, he was given the gallows, or he was given the punishment of being put to the gallows or being hanged. As he was about to be hanged, he was asked, "Do you have any wish, that is unfulfilled wish, that you want to fulfill?" He said, "Yes, I have a wish to please ask my mother to come. I want to meet her once before I am hanged." Then his mother came. She was also very sad that her son, which mother will not be sad if her son is going to be hanged? So as she came near, the boy actually slapped her hard on her cheeks. And he said, "You are the main cause for me being put to the gallows or being hanged. Because the first day when I was young, if you had corrected me by slapping like this, as I have slapped you now, you should have slapped me like this and asked me not to steal. Because you encouraged me to steal and engage in some prohibited activity, today I am going to be hanged in front of you. So you should have corrected me at that time by slapping me hard." That's why there is a saying, "Spare the rod and spoil the child." Of course, in the Western countries, there is a theory that you should never beat children, etc. That is in a different context. But I was especially subjected to, I was very greatly punished by my father when I was young, and I would not read. Of course, today I feel what he did was correct, only it's not wrong. But on the other hand, the mother, out of compassion only, she has to actually, in this story which I just narrated, if she was really compassionate, she should have slapped him and asked him not to steal thereafter. So compassion is doing something what is good for the person in the long run. That's in the ordinary sense. But in this case, when we Jivatmas or individual souls have committed sins unknowingly, then what does Goddess Mahalakshmi do? She says, she plays the role of the Mother Divine and says, yes, this Jivatma or individual soul has to be pardoned. And there is no other way. So this is one role she plays. On the other hand, she is also the consort of the Lord. And she cannot go against the wishes of the Lord because she is also subservient to the Lord. So it's a very fine balancing act that she has to play. But since it is for the welfare of her children, that is we the Jivatmas, that activity is glorified to a great, great, great extent. It is known as Purushakara. So what Prilokacharya says here is, since she is the Mother Divine and she is unable to withstand the miseries that her children, the Jivatmas, are undergoing. Since she is the consort of the Supreme Lord, and she is very much liked by the Supreme Lord. Kannadivatta Purushakaram. So she actually takes a very balanced view, plays a very balanced role, and then performs this Purushakaram. How? By actually attracting him. So it is a general belief that many a times the human beings will have certain desires which can be fulfilled only by their wives. So many a times it is seen that wives blackmail their husbands also. But here that is not the case. So the goddess Mahalakshmi tries to actually appease the Supreme Lord by what is here mentioned as by her bodily beauty. But appeasing a person using their bodily beauty is not correct in general terms. But here it is mentioned that with the sole aim of protecting the Jivatmas, she actually appeases the Supreme Lord by using her bodily beauty also, because she is so beautiful, the most beautiful ever person to be here in this universe. So that is why he says Kandalivatta Purushaka, which is explained like this by Swami Manavana Mamuni. Adavade Samatma Sarvalokanam Yennum Akira Jaganmataram Yennum Shulluhira Padiye Ichet Narkrival Matavai Tandam Makkaladu Channatai Maravar Tarikillar Yemgirapadiye அந்த சம்பந்தமடியாக இவர்களுடைய கிளேசம் கண்டால் சகிக்க மாட்டாதே. விஷ்ணு பத்னி என்கிறபடியே அவனுக்கு பத்னியாய் பித்தரு பரிமலர் மேற்பாவைக்கு என்கிறபடியே அவன் தன் வைலட்சண்யத்தைக் கண்டு பிச்சேரி தன் சொல் வழி நடக்கும்படி அபிமத விஷயமாயிருக்கையாலே கண்ணடிவத்த புருஷகாரம் என்கை. So it is the general belief that any male person, when he sees a very beautiful woman, he becomes enamored about her. And he wants to enjoy her beauty. So in this case, the goddess Supreme Goddess Mahalakshmi, as I just mentioned now, exploits, exploit may not be the correct word, but I am using the word exploits because it is done purely with the intention of protecting us, the Jivatmas. So many a times, though you say the means and end both have to be justified, you may also say that the end justifies the means in certain cases. So for example, it is mentioned that in the story of Tirumangai Alvar, so he was enamored in his younger years. He was enamored of the great, very beautiful. He was actually the commander of a particular group of soldiers who were engaged in a particular activity. So it is known as Kallar Jati, or in Sanskrit, to put it, I don't think that is the right word, but there is a community which lives by actually engaging in burglary. But that burglary has certain values that are protected or that are to be followed. How can a person who burgles be considered as a law-abiding citizen? Today the question will come like that. But in those days, there were certain class of people who were authorized to steal or burgle, but based on certain principles. These are all very unique aspects of the Indian tradition. So there are certain values that are laid down in Dharma Shastra for those people. So it is, yes, you are right. So I'll come to that point. So Tirumangai Alvar belonged to that class of burglars. And it is mentioned in the Shastras, especially in the Indian Shastras, how they can actually burgle. In the sense, they can engage in burglary, they can actually steal from persons who earn money by unfair means. So they can steal from, they are allowed under the law of those days. They were allowed under the law of those days, where they could actually burgle from people who earn money through unfair means. But there are several values. They are not supposed to harm anybody. They are not supposed to kill anybody. They are not supposed to engage in any other illegal activity, etc. They are only allowed to burgle. So how even the modus operandi also was prescribed in those days. So this was one mechanism where they could actually relieve people of their ill-gotten money and distribute it to the other people. So Tirumangayalvar belonged to that Kallara Jati. Kalla means actually a thief. But thief not in the derogatory sense, but in a positive sense. Yeah, like somebody like Robin Hood, or there are several good Samaritans, as they call them in the Western context. So there is some time back, I think there was a film called The Fugitive or something like that, where there is a person who relieves people of their ill-gotten money and gives it to good people and things like that. But in the eyes of the law that prevails in the land, he is not correct. He is a thief actually. So actually, when Tirumangayalvar, during his younger years, before he became an Alvar, he was enamored of this stunning beauty called Kumudavalli. And she was a great devotee of the Lord. So what she did was, she put a condition that if you want to marry me, you have to feed 1,000 Sri Vaishnavas every day. So that is what he did. That is how the story goes. And he was the person who constructed the 1,000-pillared mandap in Srirangam that exists even today. According to historians, it is the 6th or 7th century when he lived. So in these cases, the end justifies the means. So in case of Goddess Mahalakshmi, the Supreme Mother Divine, also this is the case. And in case of Goda Devi also, it is very beautiful. In fact, about Andal, which has been raised by Govinda Ramanujadasji. That is what it means. What you have mentioned is also correct. But one very important thing that to be noted by Goda Devi is in the shloka that propitiates her. Swami Parashara Bhattar very beautifully narrates what she does. So he says, Neela Tungastanagiri Tati Suptam Udbodhya Krishnam Pararthyam Swam Shrutishata Shiras Siddham Adhyapi. A very, very beautiful saying. In the sense, he says, this Krishna, he has actually forgotten his duties of protecting us Jivatmas, or individual souls. By engaging, he is actually sleeping on the bosom of Goddess Neela. It is so enjoyable that he has forgotten his duty of protecting us Jivatmas. So what Andal or Goda Devi does is, she actually makes Lord Krishna himself, she sings the Suprabhatam to him and says, please rise from your slumber and do your duty, that is protecting all of us. So she is a teacher to Lord Krishna himself. That is the greatness of Goda. So what does she teach? He has forgotten his duties and sleeping and enjoying life with Neela Devi. And when that is the case, she actually intervenes in the middle. And then he asks, or she actually coaxes Lord Krishna to rise from his slumber and start protecting us, the Jivatmas. That is the greatness of Goda. So that is why, yes, she intercedes for us, the Jivatmas, and protects us. So coming back to the text here. So it is also mentioned for people like us to understand. So one very important aspect to be noted is several people who give discourses, etc. They compare the relationship between Lord Narayana and Goddess Mahalakshmi to the relationship between an ordinary husband and wife that happens in this world. But no, it is to be very importantly known that the relationship between the divine couple is not equal to ordinary couples in this world. This is what we call some filial love or something like that, which is more to do with physical attraction more than any other things. But there it is beyond physical attraction, because they are not ordinary human beings like us. They have overcome all these ordinary desires that what we call as carnal cravings, to put it in a very biblical language. So they are beyond all these carnal cravings, and their relationship is divine. So this is very well known when we study the Ramayana, where Goddess Sita says, Ananya Raghavenaham Bhaskarena Prabhayata. Just as the orb of the sun cannot be separated from the sun, I am not distinct from Lord Vishnu. I am a part of him, which is inseparable. Therefore, the relationship between Goddess Mahalakshmi and Lord Vishnu should not be compared in any way to the relationship of human beings, which involves a husband and wife. But for us to understand, if you have to explain something to very ordinary people, you have to give the example that they understand. So here the very ordinary example is given by Pudalokacharya when he says, just like a wife coaxes her husband using her physical beauty to do something she wants, Goddess Mahalakshmi also coaxes Lord Vishnu or Lord Narayana by her physical beauty and asks her to protect the Jivatmas. So this example or analogy of human beings, ordinary human beings, is given only for the sake of ordinary people like us understanding to what extent she actually condescends. I think that is the right word. So she condescends to a very ordinary level purely for our sake. That is, it is said that she uses her physical beauty to attract the Supreme Lord in order to accomplish her own vested interest. What is the vested interest? Protection of us, the Jivatmas. So that is the purport of this sutra. And he quotes several Pashurams or stanzas from various Alvars and also other works. So we come to the 14th sutra. திருவடியை பொறுப்பிக்கும் அவள் தன் சொல்வழி வரும் அவனை பொறுப்பிக்க சொல்ல வேண்டாவிரே எல்லாம் செய்தாலும் நிரங்குஷ சுதந்திரனான ஈஸ்வரன் தேத்தனருடைய அபராதங்களை நிறுத்தறுத்து தீர்த்துவன் என்றிருக்கும் அளவில் இவளாலே பொறுப்பிக்கப் போமோவென்ன அருளிச் செய்கிறார் திருவடியை என்று தொடங்கி, அதாவது தன்னை 10 மாசம் தர்ஜன பர்சனம் பண்ணின இந்த ராட்சசிகளுடைய அபராதங்களை கணக்கிட்டு சித்திரவதம் பண்ண உத்தியோகித்து நின்ன சொல்விரங்கனான திருவடியும் உட்படா கக்குப்பேத் என்னும் நகச்சின்னாபராத்யதி என்னும் இத்தியாத்யுபதேசித்தாலே பொறுப்பிக்கும் அவள் மதராள் தனத்துள்ளான் என்னும் மாமதர்கள் மங்கை மணநோக்கமுண்டான் என்னும் அல்லி மதர் மகள் போக மயக்கு களாகியும் நிற்கும் என்னும் சொல்லுகிறபடியே தன் போக்கியத்தையிலே குமிழ் நீருண்டு, etc. So the question here raised here is the Supreme Lord is totally independent. We call it as Nirankusha Swatantra. He is not bound by any person whatsoever, or any human being, or any other person, or any other force whatsoever. And when he examines the unlawful activities, or we, for example, we engage in what we call as akritya karana and kritya karana. We engage in activities that are prohibited, like telling lies, etc., right from that. And also not engaging in the prescribed activities. So our mistakes or our fallacies are of two types. The two faults that we constantly commit are not engaging in the prescribed activity and engaging in prohibited activities. So from morning to evening, if we examine ourselves, how many times we lie? For example, the first fallacy or fault that is prohibited is telling lies. So from morning to evening, when we examine ourselves, how many times we lie to other people? That is engage in asatya. Or not engage in the prescribed activity. For example, when you are actually born in a particular family, in a particular community, you have to perform sandhyavandana. You have to perform Vaishnava, you have to perform this. As a Sri Vaishnava, you have to perform Ashtakshara Japa, you have to perform Dvaya Japa, Tirumashloka, etc. You have to perform the Nitya Anusandhana, or you have to chant the stotras or the texts that are prescribed, etc. Are we following them fully? No. So we are engaged in activities that are not prescribed. We are engaging in activities that are prohibited, and we are not engaging in activities that are prescribed. So it is called as Anishta Akritya Karana and Kritya Karana. So when the Supreme Lord sees that we are engaging in activities that are prohibited and not engaging in prescribed activities, naturally he gets angry. Because he has given us the pramanas or the rules, do's and don'ts, in a very clear and very precise manner. So it is natural. Suppose there is a father or a boss who instructs his son or subordinate to do something, and he does the opposite. Will the boss not get angry? Is it wrong on the part of the boss to get angry, or is it wrong on the father to get on part of the father to get angry with the son? No. So it is natural that he gets angry. So, and another aspect is he is totally supreme. He is not bound by any other's will or wish. So when he is totally independent and supreme in all aspects, and when he sees that his orders or his wishes are transgressed, will he not get angry? And is it not correct to get angry? Then why does he actually listen to the advice or pleadings of Goddess Mahalakshmi and protect us and also pardon our sins? When this question is raised, the answer given is திருவடியை பொறுப்பிக்கும் அவள் தன் சொல் வழி வரும் அவனை பொறுப்பிக்க சொல்ல வேண்டாவிரே. This question is answered in a very unique manner by Pillalokacharya after raising the question. So we have to go back to the scenes of Ramayana. which I will very briefly describe, and then I will conclude today's talk. So you all are familiar with the story of Ramayana. I am sure if you are not familiar with any aspect, please let me know. I will explain that in detail. So in the Yuddha Kanda, after Ravana was killed by Rama, there was a small discussion, internal discussion regarding who should convey the news of Ravana being killed to goddess Sita. Then who else but Lord Hanuman, who is known as the Tiruvadi. Tiruvadi means the feet of the Supreme Lord. So there are, in Shiva Vaishnava parlance, we call there are two Tiruvadis or 2 feet of the Supreme Lord. One is known as Periya Tiruvadi and another is known as Shiriya Tiruvadi. So Periya Tiruvadi is Lord Garuda, the divine kite, as some people translate, though I don't approve of that translation. And the Shiriya Tiruvadi or the small Tiruvadi or small feet is Lord Hanuman. So Hanuman was chosen to go to Sita in Ashokavana and convey the news that Ravana was killed and she is free hereafter. And then Hanuman immediately goes there and tells Sita, Sita is also happy. And noticing that she is in a happy mood, Hanuman asks for a boon. He says, now that you are so happy, I want to ask a boon. Ask for a boon. And Sita said, so be it. So please ask, I will accede to your wishes. Then Hanuman said, all these days, for the last 1 year or so, these demonesses who have been around here have troubled you to such a large extent. There is not a thing that they have not done to harm you, though they have not physically harmed you. They have actually troubled you so much that I want to take revenge on them. So you please permit me to give all types of troubles to them, and actually they call it as Chitravadha in Sanskrit. That means not directly killing a person, but torturing them. So you please permit me to torture them to the maximum possible extent and then kill them. So immediately Sita laughs at Hanuman. She says, I thought you were such a wise person, but I think you are still a monkey. That is why she says, Papanam va shubhanam va padharhanam plavangama. Until then, she was addressing him in very honorable terms as, Oh Lord Hanuman, Oh son of Anjana Devi, Oh Anjaneya, etc. But in this context, she said, Oh monkey, what are you talking about? So, karyam karunamaryena nakaschinnaparati. You have to have utmost compassion to any person in this world, because there is no person in this world who has not committed a mistake. And she says, have I not committed any mistake? Have you not committed any mistake? And she even goes to the extent of saying, has not Lord Rama committed any mistake? And then he also says one very important shloka. It says, Rajasam Shrayavashyanam Kurvantinam Parajnaya Vidheyanam Chadasinam Kah Kupyed Vanarottama. And here in this case, these demonesses who have troubled me, have they done it of their own accord? They were actually acting purely on the orders of Ravana. And then since they were subservient, so they have done nothing to trouble me out of their own accord or on their own volition. And therefore, who will get angry with these people? If you are getting angry with these people, it means that you are a monkey. Therefore, there is nobody in this world who will not commit a mistake, and these people have not committed any mistake of their own accord. They have been purely obeying their master now. So please have some compassion and leave them alone. So that is what she says. So whatever it is, other people, like ordinary people, what would they have done? So if Ravana had ordered them, even they could have transgressed his orders and they could have been friendly with me, they would have told like that. But Sita is the personification of compassion. So even if the demonesses could have done something of their own accord, she does not indict them on that account. So she is not vindictive. So she is the personification of compassion. When she is so much compassionate to those who have troubled her directly, no end, will she not be compassionate to us, the Jivatmas, her own children? Therefore, even if the Lord is supreme in all respects, and he is totally independent to take any decision, that is, even punish us, she, who was so much compassionate to even those who troubled her no end, will never desist from using all facilities that is under her control to protect us and see to it that we attain moksha ourselves. So this is the purport of this sutra. So some more meanings need to be mentioned that I'll mention in the next class. So today I am concluding a little early, don't mistake me. So we'll conclude here. Any interactions? You are welcome. So one very interesting question is Neela Devi Radha. It seems Shiva Vaishnava Sampradaya does not accept that Radha existed. Is that an accepted view throughout the Sampradaya or only the view of some? So as far as I know, there is nothing explicitly mentioned that Shiva Vaishnava Sampradaya does not accept Radha as Neela Devi. But there are references to Neela Devi in probably Harivamsha Mahapurana, and also Swami Annangaracharya, who has an authority on this subject, has written he has given some very important views along with the necessary logic to substantiate some aspects here. I will mention about this in the next class or the next session. But there is nothing explicit to say that Shiva Vaishnava Sampradaya does not accept Radha. I don't know whether Bhagavatam specifically mentions anything about Radha. I think Keshav Dasji has to let me know, or if you know, you may also let me know. Is there any reference to Radha in Srimad Bhagavatam? Keshav Dasji, are you aware of any reference, specific reference?
So Swami, her name is not given, but there's, I mean, obviously there's a reference that there was one Gopika who was more important or more closer to Lord Krishna than the others. So other people will say that was Radha. There's other places. So as he said also in the text in the chat, according to Raman Bhatta, I asked Raman Bhatta about that. He gave some pramana from some Pancharatra equate about one about Sita, another one about Radha, and Radha was equated with Neela Devi, but I don't know if it's accepted by everybody.
So if it is mentioned in the Pancharatra text and given by Raman Bhatta is a very knowledgeable person. He is an acclaimed expert in Agamas. So definitely we have to respect his views. So any other question? Thank you very much.
Swami, anything else you can say about like what I explained about Bhudevi and Neela Devi, the relationship with the Lord and how they relate to the jivas, just for the purposes of the recording for the future, if you could say anything more on that or make it more clear in the explanation.
The fundamental concept is like this. So Sri Devi is what they call as the divine Shakti or force. Of course, once again, force is not the right word. But the divine power of the Lord is known as Sri Devi. So when you see it from what we call from the Tattva point of view, or the spirit, she is actually Vishnu Akshasthalalaya. That is, she is a person who is stationed in the heart of Lord Vishnu. Heart of Lord Vishnu means, of course, physically in the in the iconic form of the Lord. Also, they have a small icon of Goddess Mahalakshmi, or it's in the form of a upward triangle. It is shown as the Kaustuba Chinna or something like that, which represents Goddess Lakshmi. And in all the Vishnu icons, you can see that either explicitly or just in a symbolic manner. So the Supreme Lord consists of, that is why it is said as Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta. So she is the Vishnu Shakti. So she is one consort. The Bhudevi is once again the personification of the earth or the universe, which is once again another feature of the Lord, which is actually depicted as a consort of the Lord. Then my Guru very beautifully used to explain the Neela Devi. Neela Devi is how the name Neela came into existence. Na Ila. Ila means Bhumi. So the person other than Neela. Ila is Neela. Though the Sanskrit rule makes it Nela, no, it's not easy to pronounce. So she was named as Neela Devi. So Neela Devi is the personification or the representation of all the Jivatmas. So ultimately what happens, that is why it is said as all the Jivatmas are the consort of the Supreme Lord. So it is Swamitva Atmatva Sheshatva Pumstvadhyaha Swamino Guna. Svebhyo Dasatva Dehatva Vashitva Stritva Daina. So Stri Prayam Itarat Sarva. That means ultimately the Jivatma is like a consort of the Supreme Lord. That is why when we say Navavidha Bhakti, so we say ultimately Satipati Bhavati, the ultimate relationship between the Jivatma and Paramatma is like the relationship of a husband and wife. That is, he is the husband and she is the wife. So that is why in Nammadvar Sirvamudi we see several stanzas where he imagines, not imagines, he that type of that is his experience actually, that he is the consort of the Lord. So we call it as Naika Bhava in Sanskrit. So he himself becomes the consort of the Lord, and he has sung several psalms or several poems. So ultimately, the ultimate relationship is realizing that this Jivatma is part of the Supreme Lord, just like Goddess Bhudevi or Sri Devi. But nobody can take this place of Bhudevi, Sri Devi, because Sri Devi is totally unique. That is why he says, Raghavatve Abhavat Sita Rukmini Krishna Janmani Anyeshu cha Avatareshu Vishnu Shri Ranapai. So that is she is the supreme. Nobody can. She is almost like the Lord himself. Bhudevi represents the earth or the universe. It is once again created by him, is totally subservient. Then you have the group of Jivatmas. That is also totally subservient. So that is represented by Neela, which means Na Ila means different from Bhudevi, but once again a consort, so it is called as Neela. So ultimately we call it as Jiva Tattva, the inherent principle of Jivatma which belongs to the Supreme Paramatma. That is why we have seen several texts like Dasa Bhuta Svata Sarve Hi Atmanaha Paramatma. In the first Prakarana of Tirumantra, the ultimate thing is this Jivatma is totally subservient to the Supreme Lord. You have to understand. So realizing that itself is enough. or that is the ultimate realization that you have, that I am totally subservient to the Supreme Lord, then you lose your independence, automatically you are accepted by the Supreme. So that is what it is. Any other question? I think we can conclude there. There is a gray area. Sudarshana and Vishnu are separate or both. Sometimes he is taken as. See, one important aspect is, once again, Sudarshana is also the supreme power of the Supreme Lord. So that is why in the, I am sure Keshav ji knows this very well. In the temple, in our Shiva Vaishnava temples, you have what is known as Paramatma Bimba and Bhakta Bimba. Bhakta Bimba is iconic representation of the devotees of the Supreme Lord. So when you see, for example, Vishwaksena, who is the commander-in-chief of the Lord, he is also having Shankha and Chakra. The Conch and Chakra, which are unique to the Supreme Lord. Then you have the Dwarapalakas, Chanda, Prachanda, etc. Four Dwarapalakas, each on four different entrances to the portals of Vaikuntha. They are also endowed with Shankha and Chakra, etc. So when you worship one unique separate aspect of the Lord, which is the Sudarshana Chakra, as a separate entity, then he is known as an Alvar, who is subservient to the Supreme Lord. But since he is an Alvar, he is depicted as an Alvar, he has got certain powers which are given to him by the Lord at the sweet will of the Lord, and who never transgresses any will of the Lord. So that is why even the worship of any one Anga of the Lord also takes us to the Lord himself. It's like now you want to access the United States. It's a very, very ordinary analogy, don't mistake me. So you want to get access to the President of United States. So you may directly walk into the White House and seek an appointment and say, I want to meet the President. That might also work. But suppose there is an undersecretary in the White House or some other secretary. You then catch hold of him and you say, please do me a favor. So if he accedes, he may, if he is very close to the President, he will directly take you to the President and ask what work you want to be done, you want to get done. So like this, all these Alvars are parts of the Supreme Lord who can be worshipped independently also, but they are not independent according to them. We may worship them independently, but ultimately they lead us to the Supreme Lord. So that is why Sudarshana Alvar himself has Sudarshana Chakra also separately. So it is akin to all the Vibhutis or the persons who belong to the servitude, to the group of services of the Supreme Lord. They also have all the weapons, etc., as the Supreme Lord Narayana himself has, just as Lord Vishwaksena or the Dwarapalakas or several other persons. Okay. So thank you very much. Ched Raman Jetesha Chatura Chaturakshari Kamavastham Prapadyante Jantavo Antamadasha Punyam Bhoja Vikasaya Papadhvan Takshaya Cha Shriman Avirbhut Bhumo Ramanuja Divakara Tridikrita Virincharitanam Kushai Bhuteha Ramanjapadam Bhoja Samashrena Shalinaha.
श्रीशैलेश दयापात्रं धीभक्त्यादिगुणार्णवम् यतीन्द्रप्रवणं वन्दे रम्यजामातरं मुनिम् लक्ष्मीनाथसमारम्भां नाथयामुनमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् यो नित्यम् अच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मव्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धोः रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्दष्टजीवजीवातवे नमः।
ॐ नमो नारायणाय